The night was quiet on the small alien world called Varin. Its twin moons floated like pale eyes above the dark forests. Most nights were peaceful here. No wars, no noise, only the whisper of wind through the blue trees. But tonight the sky screamed. A ball of fire tore across the stars, leaving a long trail of smoke behind it. The villagers of Varin looked up in fear. Something was falling from space. A few seconds later, a loud explosion shook the ground. Birds flew from the trees. The children began to cry. When the smoke cleared, people saw a huge metal shape burning in the valley. It wasn't like anything they had ever seen before. It was a ship, broken, blackened, and still glowing from the heat of entry. The elders whispered nervously. Only one word passed through their minds: human. For generations, they had heard stories about the race from the distant blue planet called Earth, a race that fought great wars and traveled between the stars. Some said humans were monsters, others said they were protectors, but no one had ever seen one on Varin, until now. A small group of villagers, led by a young healer named Cairil, walked toward the crash site. She was afraid but curious. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Sparks still danced across the shattered hull. As they approached the wreckage, Cairil heard a weak voice. "Help, please," she froze. The voice was deep, rough, and filled with pain, but it wasn't from any species she knew. Her heart began to beat faster. She climbed through the broken doorway of the ship, holding a small light in her hand. Inside, everything was destroyed. Wires hung like vines. Smoke filled the air, and a strange symbol was painted on the wall, a blue circle with white stars around it. She stepped over fallen debris and saw him. The human was lying against a wall, his suit torn and bloody. His skin was pale, his eyes half open, but even injured, there was something powerful about him. His face was calm. He tried to sit up but failed. Cairil whispered to the others, "He's alive." Her companions stepped back in fear. "We should leave him," one said. "The Empire forbids contact with humans. They are dangerous." Cairil looked at the man again. His hand reached out slightly as if asking for mercy. "He's not dangerous," she said. "So he's dying." With careful hands, she injected a healing serum into his arm and bandaged his wounds. His breathing slowed, but his eyes opened wider. He looked at her with confusion. "You're not human," he said weakly. "No," she replied softly. "You're on Varin. You crashed." He blinked a few times. "Name?" "Elias. Commander Elias Ward, Terran Alliance." Then his eyes closed again. Cairil stared at him. She didn't understand his words, but she could feel something in his tone: gratitude and exhaustion. Against the advice of her people, she carried him back to her village. They hid him in a small house near the river. Over the next few days, she cared for him. She changed his bandages, fed him, and tried to understand his strange technology. Slowly, he began to recover. He was different from the stories. Polite, calm, and kind. He always said thank you. Sometimes he tried to smile even when it hurt. "Why did you save me?" he asked one evening as the sun set. Cairil hesitated. "Because you needed help." He looked away, thinking. "Most would have left me." She gave a small smile. "Maybe we are not like most." Days later, word of the human reached the Varin Council, the ruling group under the control of the Galactic Empire. The council was afraid. The Empire had strict laws. No one was allowed to hide or help humans. The punishment was death. Guards surrounded the village. Cairil was called to the capital. Inside the cold council chamber, she stood before a tall official wearing a silver uniform. His face was hidden by a mask. "You have sheltered a human," he said. Caril's voice shook. He was dying. "I couldn't just let him—" "Silence!" the official shouted. "Do you know what you have done? The Empire will not forgive this. Humans are enemies of order." Caril's hands clenched at her sides. "He is not an enemy. He is a person." The official leaned forward. "You will surrender him to us immediately, or we will take him by force." That night, Cairil returned to her village, her heart heavy. Elias was sitting up, staring at the stars through the window. "They know," she said quietly. He nodded. "I thought so. The Empire doesn't like us much. What will they do?" He gave a weak smile. "What they always do. Try to control what they fear." Cairil sat beside him. "Then you must leave. Before they come." He shook his head. "I can't. My ship's gone." "I'm too weak." She looked out the window. The night sky glowed faintly. Strange lights moved among the stars. Not the Empire's ships, not the usual patrols. Something else. Something hunting. Those are not Imperial, Elias whispered, eyes narrowing. They followed me here. Karel's heart sank. Who are they? Pirates, he said. Or worse, they wanted what I was carrying. Outside the ground began to tremble. Distant thunder rolled through the valley. The villagers ran out of their homes, pointing upward. The strange lights grew brighter. Elias grabbed Karel's hand. Listen to me. If I don't make it, if they find me, tell Earth what you did. Tell them you helped one of us. Karel's eyes filled with fear. Why? He looked straight at her, his voice calm despite the shaking world. Because humanity remembers. Then the night sky burned red. Ships appeared above the clouds, engines roaring. The villagers screamed. Karel pulled Elias toward the shadows as the first explosions lit up the forest. The hunt for the lost human had begun. The next morning, smoke still rose from the hills where the explosions had burned the night before. The people of Varin were silent. Everyone knew the Empire would come now. When someone broke their laws, punishment always followed. Karel hid the human deeper into the mountains, inside an old stone cave used long ago by miners. Elias was still weak but awake. He could walk slowly, leaning on a broken metal rod from his ship. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. If they find you helping me, they'll kill you. Karel shook her head. If I leave you, they will kill you first. I will not let that happen. She looked at him and saw something strange. Despite his pain, there was strength in his eyes, a kind of calm she had never seen before. You humans are strange, she said softly. We are, he replied, trying to smile. For 2 days, Karel and a few loyal villagers brought food and water to the cave. They used old tunnels to move unseen. But the Empire's patrol ships soon arrived, sleek black cruisers with red markings. They landed in the capital first, then spread across the villages. Soldiers in grey armor questioned everyone. They broke into homes, scanned for heat signs, and demanded answers. Where is the human? They shouted. Who helped him? No one spoke. The people were afraid but silent. The Empire grew angry. They brought machines that could track energy signatures from human technology. The soldiers followed the trail of Elias's broken ship to the forest near Karel's village. Karel saw the lights of their search beams moving closer each night. In the cave, Elias worked on something small, his hands steady despite his wounds. It was a round device, silver and blue, covered in blinking lights. What is that? Karel asked. A beacon, he said. It sends a message through subspace. To who? He looked at her, his voice low. To Earth. Karel froze. You mean your people? Yes, he said. If they get this message, they'll know what happened here. She frowned. And if they come? The Empire will call it an invasion. He looked away, his eyes dark. If they come, it won't be for war. It will be because of you. Before Karel could answer, a loud sound shook the cave. The entrance exploded and dust filled the air. Empire soldiers poured in, shouting commands. Karel pulled Elias behind a rock. He aimed a small blaster, the last working weapon from his ship. The soldiers fired. The cave echoed with noise and light. Karel screamed as a blast hit near her. Elias fired back, hitting one soldier in the chest. The others retreated for a moment. Go, Elias shouted. Take the beacon and run. I won't leave you, she cried. You have to, he said, pressing the small device into her hands. If they find me, I can delay them. You can hide the signal. Tears filled her eyes, but she obeyed. She ran through a narrow tunnel at the back of the cave. Behind her, she heard gunfire, explosions, and Elias shouting in defiance. Outside, the forest burned. Empire ships hovered above, searching. Karel ran until her lungs burned. She reached an old cliffside tower, long abandoned. She climbed to the top, opened the beacon, and saw a small red light blinking. She pressed the activation switch. A faint hum filled the air. Above her, the clouds parted for a moment, and a beam of blue light shot into the night sky, so bright it could be seen for miles. The soldiers saw it too. There, one shouted. The signal, stop it! Karel ducked behind a rock as the Empire fired. The tower exploded, and she was thrown to the ground. When she opened her eyes, the beacon was gone, its signal already sent. The sky shimmered with fading blue light. Karel could only hope it reached somewhere far away. The Empire found her soon after. They dragged her through the ashes, demanding to know where the human was. "He's dead," she said weakly. "You killed him." The commander looked at her for a long moment, then smiled coldly. "Then you will share his fate." He raised his weapon, but before he could fire, one of his officers ran up, shouting, "Sir, we're detecting unknown energy signatures, non-imperial." The commander lowered his weapon. "From where?" "Unknown. They vanished as soon as we scanned them. Possibly a ghost signal." The commander turned back to Karel. "You've brought trouble to this planet. If the humans come, we'll burn this world before they land." He left her lying in the dirt. The Empire soon declared Varin under martial law. They controlled the skies, placed guards in every town, and silenced anyone who spoke of the human. The wreck of Elias's ship was taken away to be studied. Only Carol remembered the look in his eyes, the promise that Earth would remember. Days turned into weeks. The Empire stopped searching. They believed the signal had died in space. But far beyond the known systems, past the edge of the galaxy, something stirred. In the black void between stars, a single Terran listening post received a faint message. The signal was broken, the voice weak but still clear enough to understand. "They saved me. Remember them." A long silence followed. Then the officer on duty called his superior. The message was sent to Central Command. Across light years, the data traveled until it reached Earth itself. The leaders of the Terran Alliance gathered in a quiet chamber. They listened to the voice again and again. No one spoke for several minutes. Finally, Admiral Sato said in a low voice, "Prepare the fleet. We have a promise to keep." That night, the stars above Earth began to move. One by one, the Terran warships came alive, their engines glowing like the dawn. And somewhere deep in space, the people of Varin slept, unaware that their act of kindness had reached across the galaxy, and that humanity was already on its way. The days on Varin passed slowly, each one the same as the last. The Empire ruled with a cold hand. Their ships floated above the sky like silent vultures. People learned to keep their heads down, to work quietly, to never mention the human. Cashel lived in the shadows, tending to the wounded and pretending to forget. But at night, when she looked at the stars, she wondered if the beacon had truly reached anyone. She often dreamed of the human's last words, "Humanity remembers." Sometimes she woke believing she heard his voice again. She didn't know that far across the galaxy, the message had already begun its journey. Deep in the void, in a Terran Alliance listening post orbiting a small frozen moon, a young operator named Lin was half asleep when the console beeped. It was an old emergency frequency, one used only in pre-war times. Lin frowned, adjusted the filters, and listened. Through static and distortion, a broken voice came alive. "This is Commander Elias Ward. Shipped out alien assistance. They saved me. Remember them?" Lynn sat up straight, heart racing. The signal was weak, years old, maybe decades, but it was human. She immediately sent the recording to command. Within hours, the data reached Earth. Inside the Terran Defense Command, officers and admirals gathered around a holodisplay showing the signal's origin. The coordinates pointed to a small world near the edge of Imperial territory. Many doubted it could still exist. "The message is real," Admiral Sato said firmly. "And you all know what it means." The room was silent. "It means someone helped one of ours. That alone is enough." "You want to send a fleet that far?" another officer asked. "Through Imperial space." Sato nodded slowly. "We don't start wars, but we remember who stands with us." Orders were signed. Within weeks, ships began leaving dockyards across the Sol system. Massive cruisers and carriers filled the dark, their hulls marked with the blue insignia of Earth. Thousands of men and women prepared for a journey no one had ever taken before. The mission was simple: find Varin, confirm the story, and if true, repay the debt. The people of Earth had long memories, and gratitude was one of their oldest traditions. Meanwhile, back on Varin, the Empire had almost forgotten the event. They mined the planet's metals, forced the people to work, and silenced every whisper of rebellion. Karel grew older. Her once dark eyes now showed the weight of years. She taught young children medicine and told them stories of the stars. One night, while teaching, she told a story no one was supposed to hear. Long ago, someone fell from the sky, a human. We saved him, and he said his people would remember. The children listened, wide-eyed. "Did they ever come back?" One asked. Karel smiled faintly. Not yet, but hope doesn't die that easily. Outside, far above, strange lights flickered in the dark sky, lights too faint for most to see. The Empire dismissed them as cosmic dust, energy storms or static interference. But Karel felt something in her heart, a whisper that told her the story wasn't over. On Earth's flagship Eternal Resolve, Admiral Sato stood on the bridge watching the stars stretch into white lines. The fleet had jumped into hyperspace. Around him, hundreds of officers worked in silence. "How long until we reach the Varin sector?" he asked. 3 weeks, Admiral," replied his navigator. "And Imperial scanners. Minimal. They won't notice until we're close." Sato nodded. "Good. Let's make sure they understand. Humanity repays its debts." As the fleet moved through the void, thousands of soldiers looked out at the stars, wondering who they were going to save. Some had heard rumors that an alien world had once rescued a human long ago, when the Alliance was still young. None truly knew if the story was real. But all of them believed one thing: no act of mercy goes unanswered. Back on Varin, the Empire noticed strange readings near the system's edge. A small patrol ship was sent to investigate. It never returned. The Imperial commander dismissed it as a malfunction. Yet a day later, another patrol vanished. Whispers began among the officers. Something was coming. Karel was in her garden when the ground trembled. Birds fled from the forests, their cries echoing through the sky. She looked up and saw faint streaks of light descending from orbit. Her heart stopped. The colors were different, blue and white, not red like the Empire. A neighbor shouted, "Meteor shower!" But Karel knew better. She felt the same shiver she had felt all those years ago when Elias's ship fell from the sky. Only this time the fire was not from a single ship. It was from hundreds. Imperial sensors blared alarms across the system. Unidentified fleet detected. Thousands of signatures approaching, the computers warned. Origin unknown. Panic spread among Imperial officers. "Activate defense grid." "Inform Central Command," the Admiral shouted. But it was too late. The Terran fleet had arrived at the edge of the Varin system. Their ships formed a silent wall of steel and light. Each ship carried the insignia of Earth, glowing proudly under alien suns. A message was sent across all frequencies, clear and powerful. "To the people of Varin," the voice said. "This is the Terran Alliance. We received your kindness. We have not forgotten." On Varin, Karel fell to her knees. Her eyes filled with tears. The children ran outside, pointing at the sky. The stars above were no longer stars, they were ships. Humanity had come. The Empire scrambled its fleet, but their ships looked small beside the Terran warships. For the first time in centuries, the people of Varin felt something new, hope. Karel whispered to herself. He was right. They remembered. In the command ship above, Admiral Sato looked at the blue planet below. "Prepare landing teams," he ordered. "Let's go home." The bridge filled with quiet determination. Earth had crossed half the galaxy to repay one act of kindness, and they would not leave until the debt was honored. The sky above Varin turned red. The hunters had returned, larger and more aggressive than before. The alien ships hovered above the city, with engines that roared like thunder, circling the planet like vultures waiting for their prey. Karel and Elias watched from the underground shelter, where they had hidden the last group of civilians. Elias's face was pale but determined. "They found us again," Karel whispered. Her hands trembled as the walls shook from a distant explosion. "Not for long," Elias said quietly, his eyes fixed on the console that flickered weakly in front of him. Over the past days, he had worked with local engineers to repair an old Terran beacon, something left behind from the ancient exploration days. It was small, damaged, and old tech, but it still carried a message only one fleet in the galaxy could recognize, the Terran distress code. Karel stared at him. "You're calling your people?" He nodded slowly. "If they still exist," she frowned, "and if they don't." Elias smiled faintly. "Then at least they'll know we tried." He pressed the final button, and a deep hum filled the air. The beacon activated. A thin blue pulse shot into the sky and vanished into the clouds above. For a moment, they both stood in silence. Then another explosion rocked the city. The IE hunters were already landing. Elias turned to Karel. "Go to the civilians, protect them." Karel shook her head fiercely. "Not leaving you." Before he could respond, the shelter door burst open and a soldier stumbled in. "They're here!" he shouted. "They've broken through the shield line." Elias grabbed a plasma rifle from the wall. "Then we hold them." The battle outside was chaos. Fires burned across the streets as the alien hunters, tall, black-armored creatures with glowing red visors, moved through the smoke, searching for their target. The Varin Defense Force was brave but outnumbered. The hunters' weapons sliced through metal and stone like paper. Elias fought alongside them, his human instincts sharp and ruthless. He moved faster than the Varin soldiers had ever seen, taking cover, aiming precisely, and never wasting a shot. Karel worked beside him, using a medical drone to keep the wounded alive. Through the smoke, she saw Elias fall behind a wall, his arm bleeding heavily. She ran to him. Ignoring the gunfire, he looked up weakly. "It's okay. Just a scratch." But she saw it wasn't. He was losing too much blood. She tore a strip from her uniform and pressed it against his wound. "You can't die here," she said, her voice shaking. "Not before they come," he tried to smile. "They will come, you'll see." Then a sound filled the air, deep and resonant, like the sky itself roaring. Everyone froze. The hunters stopped moving, looking upward. In the red clouds above, a crack of white light tore across the horizon. A shadow appeared, massive, metallic, and unmistakable. It was not a hunter ship. It was something far larger. "What is that?" Karel whispered. Elias's eyes widened, tears mixing with blood. "That is home." The light grew brighter as dozens of massive ships dropped out of warp, surrounding the planet in perfect formation. They were sleek, grey, and marked with the blue insignia of Earth Command, the Terran fleet. The sky now belonged to humanity again. Over the comms, a voice spoke in clear, firm English. "This is Admiral Harper of the Terran fleet, Allied World Varin. Hold your positions, we are here to assist." Karel stared at Elias in disbelief. "They came." He nodded weakly. "They always do." Above them, Earth's fleet opened fire. Beams of white plasma cut through the hunter ships with surgical precision. The invaders tried to retreat, but the Terran cruisers were too fast, too powerful. The battle that had once felt hopeless now turned in seconds. The ground shook not from destruction, but from deliverance. As Karel held Elias close, she saw the fires dying out and the sky clearing. "You sent that signal, and they really came," she whispered. Elias's voice was faint, but proud. "We repay our debts." Karel looked up at the stars and saw hundreds of human ships gliding in silence across the sky. Humanity had returned, not as wanderers, but as guardians. And for the first time since the war began, Varin felt hope. Smoke still hung above Varin's broken cities, but the fires were fading. The Terran fleet now filled the sky like a living shield, giant, ships moving with purpose and discipline. The hunter vessels were either destroyed or fleeing into deep space. Everywhere, the sound of relief mixed with disbelief. People who had once feared the human now cheered at the sight of their grey-armored saviors. Karel stood beside Elias on a medical stretcher inside the Terran command center. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Humans moved quickly around them, soldiers, engineers, and medics, each working in perfect rhythm. Elias's arm was bandaged, but his body was weak. The long days of fighting had taken their toll. "You shouldn't be awake," Karel said quietly. "You need rest." Elias gave a faint smile. "Not until I see this through." Admiral Harper approached, tall, stern and calm. Her uniform gleamed under the harsh lights. "Commander Ward," she said, "you sent a distress beacon using an old exploration code. We thought it was a ghost signal." Elias nodded. "It was all we had." The Admiral glanced out the window at the smoking horizon. "And this world?" "They helped you." Karel stepped forward. "We saved him when everyone else wanted to hand him over to the Empire." The Admiral studied her, then slowly nodded. "Then you saved more than one man. You saved a friend of humanity." Outside, the Terran fleet began landing supplies and aid units. Small drones buzzed over the ruined districts, distributing food, water, and medicine. Human engineers worked side by side with Varin workers, repairing what could be rebuilt. Everywhere Karel looked, she saw cooperation, Two races once divided by fear, now united by survival. She turned to Elias. Is this what your people always do? Return when others need them? He looked out the window at the glowing ships. Not always, he said softly, but when someone saves one of us, we remember. That night the entire planet gathered in the main city plaza, a place once filled with ash, now lit by the soft glow of Terran lights. A large holographic screen projected the face of Admiral Harper as she spoke to both peoples at once. To the citizens of Varin, she began, your act of compassion reached across the stars. You helped a human when it brought you danger, and for that, Earth will never forget. Today begins an alliance between our worlds, not of power, but of gratitude. The crowd erupted in cheers. Karel felt her chest tighten as she looked at Elias. He was pale, but smiling. Every ship above them shone brighter, forming constellations in the night sky, a silent promise of protection and friendship. Later, as the city quieted, Karel walked to the observation deck where Elias sat wrapped in a medical blanket. He gazed at the stars, his voice barely above a whisper. I never thought I'd see them again. She smiled. You called them, and they came. He turned to her. You saved me first. They sat in silence for a long moment, watching as Terran frigates moved like silver fish across the darkness. Above them, the hunter's wreckage drifted silently into the void, reminders of what loyalty could overcome. You know, Karel said, my people once thought humans were only stories, warriors from an angry world. Elias chuckled weakly. Sometimes we are. She tilted her head. And now? He looked at her and smiled. Now we're the ones who owe you. As dawn rose over Varin, the fleet prepared to depart. Massive engines ignited, casting light across the horizon. Karel watched in awe as the ships began to ascend. A voice echoed over the comms. Terran fleet departing orbit. Stand strong, allies. Elias turned to her, offering a small silver insignia, the emblem of Earth. Command, keep this, he said, so you'll know we'll come back if you ever need us. Again, she held it tightly, and we'll be ready. The ships vanished into the morning sky, leaving behind peace, a promise, and the bond between two worlds born from one act of mercy. Humanity had returned the debt, and in doing so, rewrote the future of the stars. Weeks passed since the Battle of Varin. The once silent skies were now filled with the hum of Terran and Varin ships working together. Human engineers taught the locals how to rebuild faster, stronger and safer. Varin doctors learned new medicine from Earth's technology. For the first time in centuries, the small alien world felt hope. The empire that had hunted them retreated into deep space, fearing the wrath of humanity. Everywhere stories spread of the day Earth returned, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Karel walked through the rebuilt streets with Elias by her side. He had recovered enough to stand, though still carried scars from the war. The people bowed as he passed. Not out of fear, but respect. They treat you like a hero, Karel said softly. Elias smiled. You're the hero. Karel, you risked everything when no one else would. She shook her head. I only did what was right. He looked at her with quiet admiration. That's what makes you brave. Above them, a Terran carrier ship hovered low, dropping supplies while human officers worked with Varin commanders. Admiral Harper watched from the command balcony. Arms crossed, Commander Ward, she called. Earth Council has decided. Since Varin gave us one of our own, we'll give them something in return. Elias raised an eyebrow. What's that? The Admiral smiled faintly. A permanent defense pact. The first Terran-Varin alliance. The crowd below erupted in cheers. Thousands of voices echoing through the air. Karel turned to Elias. What does that mean? He grinned. It means if anyone threatens this world again, they'll face all of humanity. For a moment, she couldn't speak. The weight of those words felt enormous. Humans were known across the stars for their unity in war and their loyalty in peace. You'd fight for us? She asked quietly. Elias nodded. We already did, and we will again. That night, a great ceremony was held in the rebuilt capital. The flag of Varin and the banner of Earth flew side by side for the first time under the starlight. Music echoed through the plaza, soft and proud. The people danced, celebrated, and cried. They had survived the impossible. On the stage, Schleichus and Karel stood before the crowd as Admiral Harper addressed them. "Let this alliance remind every world," she said, "that compassion is never forgotten. When one life is saved, millions may rise to return the favor." The audience erupted with applause. Karel felt tears in her eyes as she looked up at the Terran ships forming a pattern in the night sky, a message written in light across the heavens. "We remember." Later, as the crowd faded, Elias and Karel stood alone at the edge of the balcony. The stars shone brighter than ever. "You think this peace will last?" Karel asked. Elias's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. "Peace never lasts forever," he said, "but loyalty does. That's what matters." A soft breeze brushed past them as the hum of Terran ships echoed like a heartbeat across the sky. In that moment, both knew that the story of one act of mercy had become legend. A single choice had changed two civilizations forever. Humanity had not just repaid a debt, it had found new allies, friends, and perhaps something greater. As dawn broke over Varin, light touched the silver hulls of Terran ships preparing to leave. But this time they did not vanish completely. One ship remained in orbit, a guardian watching silently over the planet. Earth had kept its promise, and somewhere in the quiet between the stars, a message traveled through space from one human to his homeworld. "They saved one of us, so we saved them all." Years passed since the day humanity returned to Varin. The scars of war had healed, cities glowed again under twin moons, and children laughed where once the sound of battle had echoed. The Terran flag still flew beside the Varin emblem on every outpost, a symbol of friendship born in fire. Elias Ward had long since returned to Earth, but his story had become legend among both peoples. Songs were written, statues built, and every year the two worlds celebrated the Day of the Signal, the day compassion defied fear and changed the galaxy. Karel now served as Varin's ambassador to Earth. She often stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the blue planet rotate below. She remembered the day she'd met a dying human in a wrecked ship. How the choice to save him had cost her everything, yet given her people more than they could ever imagine. One act of kindness had brought an empire to its knees and summoned the most powerful fleet in history. One morning, a message arrived from deep space. It bore an old encryption, Terran military code but slightly modified. The signal was faint, distorted but unmistakable. Karel's heart pounded as she decoded it. The message was only 4 words. "They are coming back." She rushed to the council chamber where Terran and Varin leaders met daily. Admiral Harper, now older but still commanding, read the transmission with a grave expression. "It's from the edge of known space," she said quietly. "Scouts report unknown fleets moving. Through the Orion Belt. No insignia. No communication attempts. They destroyed 3 outposts." The room fell. "Silent?" Karel's throat tightened. "Are they the hunters?" The Admiral shook her head slowly. "No, this is something else, much larger." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Harper turned to her. "You once saved one of us." "Karel, now the galaxy may need that same courage again." Karel took a deep breath. "Then we stand together, Varin and Earth. Across the galaxy." Signals flashed between worlds. Human ships mobilized, not for conquest, but for defense. The Terran-Varin alliance had grown strong. Other species who once doubted humans now sent offers of aid. The legend of the saved human had spread far beyond its origin. It had become a promise. That evening, Karel stood at the command balcony of the Terran flagship Odyssey. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, each one a reminder of how fragile peace was. Elias's insignia still hung around her neck, a gift she had never removed. She looked up as Admiral Harper approached. "You think they're ready?" Karel asked. Harper nodded. "They'll learn fast, humans. Always do." The fleet engines rumbled as they entered formation. Thousands of ships glimmered like a constellation of steel and light, the living embodiment of unity. "Signal the fleet," Harper ordered. "Prepare for warp." Karel took one last look at Earth. Through the viewport, blue beautiful, and bright. "For him," she whispered. "For all of them." The stars stretched into lines as the Terran fleet jumped into hyperspace, disappearing into the unknown. Far beyond, an ancient enemy stirred in the dark, one that had watched silently since humanity's return to the stars. But this time, the galaxy would not face it alone. This time, when darkness came, Earth and Varin would stand side by side, ready to defend what they had built together. As the fleet vanished into the cosmic night, a message appeared across the Alliance network, a phrase that had become sacred among both species. Mercy is never forgotten, and somewhere, deep in the silence between stars, an echo answered back, the sound of humanity's promise carried across the void forever.